Okay, so to start for this activity, our goal is going to be to calculate the clean and dirty price of a bond as we go from the current time all the way up until maturity. So you're going to need to have two windows open. First up, you want to make sure you have the Bloomberg terminal open and you want to make sure you're logged in. Now, the second thing you want to open is you want to open up Excel. And when you open up Excel, just open a blank notebook. And what you want to check to make sure you have before you start the activity is you want to make sure you have this Bloomberg tab along the top. If you don't have the Bloomberg tab, you're going to want to close out of Excel, install the Excel Bloomberg or the Bloomberg Excel add-in, and the instructions for that will be in the activity, and then reopen Excel. You just want to make sure first you're logged into the terminal so that all the data loads correctly as well. Now, moving back over to the terminal here, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the bond that we're going to be using for this activity. And for this activity, we're all going to be using the same bond. So we're going to use a Ford bond, ticker F. It has a coupon of 7.45. And then mine auto-populates here. It has the maturity of July 16th, 2031. So I'm going to select that bond. And I'm just going to go straight to the yield and spread analysis. So on the screen, you've seen the screen earlier on in the activity. We have the price. So the price here, that's our clean price. We have the yield. And then the other variable we're going to be interested in here is going to be the settlement date, because essentially we want to update the settlement date to get closer to maturity and see what happens to that price. Now in Excel, we need to figure out what all these variables are called. And what happens is if you hover over different fields in Bloomberg, what it's going to tell you at the top of the box there is it says the Excel field ID is YIS_bond_PX. So that's how we would look up this variable in Excel. Same thing if I move down to yield, right? That is the variable name. So first up, we're going to start off by just setting up our Excel spreadsheet. So to start, let's try out the function builder in Excel and see if we can pull in one of these variables that we were just looking at in Bloomberg. So what I'm going to be using is this function builder in the Bloomberg tab all the way over to the left. And when you click on that, there's a bunch of different options here. The two that we'll be using throughout the course is we're going to use historical data. That'll probably be in lab 2. And then for this activity, we're going to be using the single data point. So this BDP. I'm going to click on that. And now the different options we have here are first, we need a security. So the security that we're looking up. Then we need a field. And then if we want to override anything, right? So set one variable equal to a certain number, we can do that in the overrides function. So first let's start with the security. So I'm going to be using that same Ford security. So ticker F, coupon of 7.45, and then the maturity in 2031. And then I'm just going to click on it. Now for the field, I want to calculate the price. So when we had hovered over that clean price in Bloomberg, it said it was YAS, or yield and spread, underscore bond. And you can see it starts to auto-populate. And we want the bond price. Now if I preview this here, it's going to give me the current clean price of this bond. Now, one thing I want to do for this activity is I want to override one variable. And the variable I want to override is if I'm looking at my Bloomberg terminal, I want to override this yield to stay constant, right? So as I get closer to maturity, I want the yield to stay exactly the same all the way across. So it's just the time to maturity that's varying. So in Excel, I'm going to set my yield equal to this exact number that I have in the terminal. Your number will be different than mine, so set yours equal to the exact number that you have in your terminal. First up, I'm going to look up that variable. Now I'm just going to type in that number. And now when I click preview, that number should match exactly what's in your Bloomberg terminal right now. Now, where this is going to insert when I add it into my sheet is it's going to insert wherever this green A1 is currently where it's going. If you click on it, you can switch the cell that it's going to. So maybe I want it in J8, and then I'm going to click Insert, and now it's going to insert that function into my Excel sheet. So looking up here at my formula bar, what I have here is I have the BDP function, right? So the single data point. The first thing going across is it's telling me the bond I'm looking up. The next variable is the value it's telling me. So it's telling me the bond price. And then after that, I have my override. So I overrid the yield and I set the yield equal to that value. Now we will have to add one more override here, right? We're trying to set different settlement dates. So in a minute, we're going to add on a second variable here towards the end of the settlement date. Before we do that, we're just going to create a range of dates, right? Thinking about creating a graph. We want to start off with the current settlement date that appears in your terminal. So in my terminal, this is the date I'm going to be starting with here, this 8/22/2023. So I'm just going to start a new column over here in Excel, label it settlement date. Start off with 8/22/2023. I do a series of 2, so I'm going to type in the next date, 8/23/2023, highlight both of them, and now I'm going to drag this down. You're going to have to drag down quite a ways until the maturity. So the maturity for this bond is 7/16/2031. One thing to note here too, I actually delete that last day as well. It doesn't like to calculate the bond price on the actual day of maturity, so I just keep it as going until 7/15/2031. Okay, so now let's label our next column clean price, right, or the quoted price. And what I want to insert here is I'm going to go back over to this BDP function, and now I'm going to add in another field that I want to override. So you can see I did this activity recently because this is the variable I'm looking for here. It's called settlement date. So again, if you start typing in settle, it should start populating. And now let's suppose I typed in the date of 08/22/2023. Now if I preview it, it's still going to show me that exact same number, right? So it looks like it's doing everything correctly. But let's try updating this to be another date further in the future. So I'm just going to pick a day. I'm going to say October 5th, 2023. Now, when I click preview, that value didn't actually change. So that's actually the wrong value that's appearing. And the reason for this is because we formatted the settlement date incorrectly. You can verify that this is the wrong number if you go in Bloomberg, right, move over to whatever settlement date you typed in. So for me, it was October 5th. Press the green enter button on your keyboard, and now it's going to update, right? So the clean price went down because we're getting closer to maturity. The clean price is reapproaching par. So this is the value I should be getting in Excel. So how do we actually want to format this date? What we want to do is open up a new tab in Bloomberg, and then you're going to search help, and then you want to look up the desktop API, or DAPI is the abbreviation. Press enter, and now this is going to help you with Microsoft Excel and the Bloomberg add-in. So the variable I'm looking for, I'm going to type into this yellow search bar, and the variable I'm looking for here is settlement date. So when I look up settlement date, I'm just going to click on the first one there that appears as that same variable. What it tells me about the settlement date is that I actually have to format it in that format right there. So it needs to be year, 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 month, month, day, day, instead of in the Excel format. So I need to convert the Excel date into basically just a text string where it's year, month, day, day. Now, how can I do that over here in Excel? First up, I'm going to move this clean price quoted over to the side because I'm going to need to have a text formatted settlement date. And Excel has a wide range of equations and functions you can use. The one I'm going to be using here is where you just type in equals text, open parentheses, and now you can see we need a value that we're entering, right? So my value is going to be the settlement date, comma, and then we need the text format. So you can read more about this function on the Microsoft help page. So it basically tells you to click in the value you want to format, and then you need quotes around whatever format you want to apply. And it gives some date examples down here, right? So if you want to do month, day, day, year, that's how you would type it in. So I want to format that settlement date. I'm going to type in my quotes, and I want it to be year, month, day, day, and my quotes and my parentheses, and press enter. And now you can see that variable is in text format. If I want to drag it all the way down the corner, or all the way down the column, sorry, I'm just going to double click in that bottom right corner, and it's going to auto-populate all the way down. So now I can go about calculating the clean price. So if I reformat and do a settlement date, and I want to set the settlement date as 10/05, or let me type it in right, 2023, 10/05, press preview. That gives me the correct number that I previously saw in the Bloomberg terminal. So if I insert this into my clean price or quoted column in C2, now when I look at my new equation that's appeared, I have a new term here at the end where it says the settlement date is equal to that text. So as I'm calculating this, I don't want that day to stay the same as I drag it down this column. I want that day to change. So the way I can get that day to change is I'm going to delete out that last portion right there of my function, and I'm just going to click on the settlement date instead, then press enter. So that first number should match the original value you had in Excel. And now I'm going to in Bloomberg. And now I'm going to double click in the bottom right corner here to have it fill in the full column. Now I like to verify using one of these later dates down here. So this is the one I was testing out in Bloomberg. So it said on October 5th, it was 104.06. So when I look over here at Bloomberg, this settlement date is the October 5th date, and that price matches what's appearing as my quoted price in Excel. Now next up, let's suppose we also wanted to add the dirty price. So the dirty price is going to be that clean price plus the accrued interest. Right, so we find the dirty price down here in the bottom right quadrant of the screen. So let's say I was just looking at one bond with $100 par. In that case, my dirty price on this October 5th date should be 105.69. So how can we actually find this in Excel now? The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to do it essentially the way we learned in class, where we take the clean price, we calculate the accrued interest, and then we add the two together. So what I want to find is I'm going to find my accrued number of days. Now over here in the function builder, I don't actually need a lot of these ones down at the bottom, right? So I'm just calculating number of days. I do want to keep in a settlement date, but the variable I'm looking up now is no longer the price. I want accrued. Okay, so if you just start typing in ACC, it appears, and I want days accrued. So now let me insert this in D2. And again, my date is wrong in this field override, but that's okay. I'll fix it. And I want to calculate my days accrued from the settlement date that is in column 2. So I have 36 days on that first one. If I double click on the bottom right corner, it'll auto-populate. And then I can verify, again, I'm using October 5th to check one of the later dates. It says 79. And when I go over to Bloomberg, my accrued interest is over 79 days. Now, if I calculate my accrued interest is going to be equal to the accrued number of days divided by 180. I'm going to put parentheses around that. And then I'm going to multiply it by 1 coupon. So this whole spreadsheet is based on a $100 par. So you want to do your coupon based on a $100 par as well. So it's going to be 7.45 divided by 2. I have my accrued interest there. I'm going to double click to bring it all the way down the column. Now another way you could get this variable for accrued interest is using the function. So you may have noticed that as I was typing in days accrued, again, I'll just start off with ACC, is you can calculate interest accrued. So if I look up the interest accrued, switch the cell that it's going to, again, don't worry that those two don't match because our dates are different here, and then update the date to be the settlement date in the column. It now matches, and I could drag this all the way down the column. So you should get the same value between those two. Now last up, we need the dirty price. And the dirty price, I'm just going to set equal to the quoted plus the accrued interest. Double click to bring it all the way down, and then again you can verify your numbers using whatever date you were using in the future. So this 105.69 matches what I had over in my terminal. One thing I wanted to mention too, in terms of the accrued number of days, this accrued number of days is a little bit different, or it's kind of the opposite of that V we were using in class. So that's why we don't do 1 minus V. This number of days is already essentially the 1 minus V. So between the last coupon being paid out, which would have been July 16th, and this settlement date of August 22nd, there have been 36 days, right? If I do 180 minus 36, that would give me the V portion of my timeline. So this accrued number of days has already taken into account that 1 minus V that we typically use in class. Now last up, let's plot this. So I'm just going to delete this value over here because we don't need this any longer. I want to plot my settlement date as my first column. So I'm just going to select all of the A column. I'm going to hold down Control on my keyboard. I want to plot my clean price. And then I also want to plot my dirty price. So I'm going to highlight all three of those at the same time by holding Control on the keyboard. Going to go back over to Insert. I just use the recommended charts. And then I like to select the second one in here, which is the line chart. So I'm going to press OK. And now we have the clean price, the blue line here, curving down, the dirty price, the yellow line, or sorry, the orange line there. So if we look at what's happening here, right, throughout each coupon period, the dirty price is rising as we get closer to the next coupon being paid. Then when the next coupon is paid out, it drops back down, right? The coupon is worth more the closer you get to it. In terms of the clean price here, we see it starts out at a higher value, right? So it's a premium bond. As it gets closer to maturity, that price reapproaches the par value. So that is the first part of this Excel activity. So now in the second part of this Excel activity, you're going to be using the tools you've just learned here to create a price yield graph. All those instructions can be found in the activity.